On this Saturday night, turbulent travel. The confusion over Canada's revamped restrictions.
This whole thing has been a roller coaster.
Plus, the Canadian national team stuck in South Africa finally secures a way home. Omicron in Ontario.
There might be a greater risk for reinfection.
The province's push to increase immunity. Plus, rare charges. The parents of a school shooting suspect appear in court. And a singer turned spy receives France's highest honor.
Global National with Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Confusion and frustration are growing tonight over Canada's new pandemic travel rules. The measures are meant to slow the spread of the new, potentially more transmissible variant, but they're also causing chaos for some Canadians arriving home, even after short trips out of the country. Jeff Semple explains in our top story tonight.
Passengers arrive at Pearson International Airport, unsure what to expect.
I'm kind of confused because there's a lot of things that you have to do.
Since the discovery of the ominous Omicron variant, Canada has introduced a flurry of new travel restrictions. The government just released these flow charts outlining how the rules apply differently depending on the country and how long you're away. Rules even Canada's top doctor admitted are confusing.
Basically, the requirement, if you're from, it's quite complicated. I think we're going to have to put up some tools on the website.
But not everyone is laughing.
This whole thing has been a roller coaster.
Two of Sue Goddard's daughters traveled to South Africa in November for a field hockey championship. But after Omicron, the event was cancelled and the team booked a trip home through Germany. Canadians arriving from Southern Africa are required to produce one negative COVID test before leaving and another in a third country en route. But because the team wasn't clearing customs in Germany, they were told their test wouldn't count and they weren't allowed to travel on to Canada.
Mental health-wise for the team, I'm gonna be honest, it's been quite tough.
Yeah.
After 2 weeks stranded in South Africa, lobbying the government, the team just received an exemption and will be allowed to return to Canada next week.
Oh my God, we can't wait to see you.
But others aren't so lucky.
So we were totally blindsided.
This Alberta couple took a quick trip to the United States. Canada does not require a negative test from travelers to the U.S. for less than 72 hours, but they're still required to upload their vaccine certificates to the ArriveCan website or smartphone app.
And we didn't have that.
We didn't know what it was.
We didn't know what it was.
As a result, even though they've been triple vaxxed, they're now forced to quarantine for 2 weeks.
The communication that has not been very clear, that's one thing, and also inconsistent.
This business tourism expert expects the result will be another blow for the beleaguered travel industry. Not because fully vaccinated Canadians are afraid of getting sick, but because they're afraid of becoming stranded abroad. Jeff Semple, Global News, Toronto.
For more clarification on what you need to know before you head to the airport, let's go to Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa. Mercedes, you sat down with Canada's Transport Minister this week on the West Block.
Robin, many countries have introduced additional border measures to try and stop the spread of the emerging Omicron variant, and Canada is no exception. Ottawa announced a travel ban for foreign nationals from 10 African countries where the new variant was first identified. In addition, mandatory COVID-19 tests upon arrival to Canada were reintroduced for travelers from all destinations except the United States. Now, even fully vaccinated people have to quarantine until they receive the result of their arrival test. The testing requirement has created a lot of concern and confusion, including where the tests will be administered and what happens to Canadians who land in one city but need to transit and take a connecting flight to get home. This week on the West Block, we sit down with Transportation Minister Omar Alghabra to get some clarity on the rules and what they mean for you ahead of the busy holiday travel season. I asked the minister where the tests will be given for those who have a connecting flight and who will be quarantining where.
So if you are coming from any of those 10 countries, you are tested upon arrival wherever you arrive, and you're expected to stay at a hotel wherever you arrive. However, if you're arriving from anywhere else in the world, from Rome, for example, you will be tested if you land in Toronto, and then you'll be allowed to go to Vancouver and quarantine at home for a day or two until your test results are out.
While travelers from the United States are exempt from Canada's new rules, the U.S. is not extending the same exception to Canada. Anyone entering the U.S. must bring a negative COVID antigen test taken within the last 24 hours. That's raised questions about whether Canada should harmonize policies with the U.S. or continue to allow people in with a 3-day-old test.
We still require fully vaccinated. We only allow U.S. travelers who are fully vaccinated into Canada. And we have random mandatory testing at the border. The U.S. doesn't have mandatory testing at their own borders. So because we have several layers of protection.
We'll bring you our full interview on the new travel rules on the West Block. Robin?
Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa. And you can watch the West Block tomorrow right here on Global. For a second straight day, Ontario is reporting more than 1,000 new COVID-19 cases. Today's total is the highest in a single day since May 29th. Most of those cases are believed to be the Delta variant, but the new Omicron variant is spreading. The WHO says it's now in 38 countries, including Canada. As of today, 11 cases of Omicron have been reported in Ontario. There are other potential infections currently under investigation. And as Brittany Rosen reports, it's prompted a push for more vaccinations in the province.
Omicron may be on a similar trajectory as other COVID-19 variants of concern as more cases arise across the country. Yet the severity of its path is still mostly unknown.
There's some very, very early data coming out of South Africa that we still have to be open-minded to, but I also appreciate that it's early data and we still have to be somewhat skeptical. But there might be a greater risk for reinfection.
After first being detected in Ottawa November 28th, cases of Omicron are popping up elsewhere in Ontario, including a child under 12 in York Region, north of Toronto. The variant is now also in Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia. Dr. Suman Chakrabarty says still there is no reason to be alarmed.
At this point in time, this is not the same as the situation was when the UK variant or Alpha came out. I understand the concern, but I don't think we need to panic. And I definitely don't think that we need to go back into the broad lockdown restriction situations that we had a year ago.
Yet the response to Omicron has been nimble. Travel restrictions have already been imposed, and Ontario has since expanded eligibility for the third shot, a recommendation recently derived from NACI. Starting on December 13th, Ontario residents over 50 will be able to book a third vaccination. Alberta has taken similar steps, while Quebec is waiting on the advice of provincial health officials.
Now we are, myself and my wife, eligible for the booster in December 13th. I will go there.
I think it's really important because it's just going to be an added safety measure. The new variant is one. The other thing is I am traveling over Christmas.
And according to Ontario's science table, the third shot should no longer be considered a booster.
Consider this to be a 3-dose vaccine now. This holds true for the majority of our population in the future and already right now.
Dr. Peter Uni says third doses will play a major part in increasing immunity to COVID and says everyone who can get one should. Brittany Rosen, Global News.
The British government is set to tighten restrictions on international visitors. As of Tuesday, all incoming travelers aged 12 and above will be required to take a COVID-19 test 48 hours before boarding a flight to the UK. There will also be increased restrictions on non-British travelers from Nigeria, who will have to quarantine in a hotel for 10 days after arriving. As of today, there are at least 160 confirmed Omicron cases in the UK. The Delta variant is still the dominant strain in the U.S., but there are more signs of Omicron. More than 24 cases have been reported across 11 states. Some of those patients recently traveled, but others had no travel history, indicating community spread is underway. So far, no hospitalizations have been reported for those who have tested positive for the new variant. Since the start of the pandemic, the U.S. has reached 49 million COVID-19 infections, and nearly 790,000 Americans have died. The manhunt for the parents of a 15-year-old Michigan school shooting suspect ended early this morning. Jennifer and James Crumbley were on the run after being indicted on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Their son, Ethan Crumbley, was arrested earlier this week, accused of murdering 4 classmates in a shooting spree. The entire family is now being held at the same jail. As Jennifer Johnson reports, police say they're looking at who may have helped the fugitive parents hide.
James and Jennifer Crumbley, parents of accused school shooter 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley, are now behind bars. The pair had evaded police for several hours, but were found hiding in a commercial building in Detroit, about 67 kilometers from Oxford.
Clearly somebody helped them into that location and made it available to them, and it was after it was publicly announced that there were warrants for them.
On Friday, the parents were charged with 4 counts each of involuntary manslaughter in the deaths of the high schoolers their son is accused of killing. They have pleaded not guilty. The Crumbleys are accused of failing to take Ethan home and get counseling the morning of the tragedy, after school officials showed them a chilling paper found on the boy's desk.
In the note was a drawing of a bullet with the following words above that bullet, quote, blood everywhere. Further down the drawing are the words, quote, my life is useless, end quote.
The prosecutor also accuses the pair of buying Ethan the semi-automatic gun he allegedly used to kill his classmates. School officials saw the teenager searching for ammunition on his phone the day before the shootings. His mother was allegedly contacted by the school, but phone records show she texted her son, LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught.
I expect parents and everyone to have humanity and to step in and stop a potential tragedy.
School shooting at Oxford High School.
Prosecutors say within minutes of the shootings, the mother also texted her son, Ethan, don't do it. The parents' attorney claims they fled the area fearing for their safety, but they took $4,000 out of an ATM, prompting U.S. Marshals to offer a bounty for information, leading to their arrests.
This very, very tragic incident that really has touched not just this community, not just this state, but this country. I mean, we're tired of this. I mean, this is awful.
This was the 28th school shooting in America so far this year. The tragedy has plunged the small town into despair and fear. A massive vigil for the victims Friday night ended in near panic after someone fainted and others called for help. The local prosecutor, a mother herself, is vowing to help this community heal, promising those who failed to stop this tragedy will pay. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
French President Emmanuel Macron says several European countries are considering opening a joint diplomatic mission in Afghanistan. During a trip to Qatar, Macron says the mission would allow ambassadors to be present in the country, but it would not amount to recognition of the Taliban government. Many Western countries, including Canada, closed their embassies in August when the Islamist militant group took control of the capital. Macron says security concerns and several other issues would need to be resolved before a mission could be opened. Coming up, another BC community told to get out, but they're refusing to leave. And darkness descends on Antarctica's summer. Residents near Indonesia's Mount Semeru are fleeing for their lives. A powerful volcanic eruption sent hot ash and gas down onto villages below. At least one person died from severe burns and more than 30 others were injured. The ash was so thick and black it completely blocked out the daylight in some places. The mayor of flood-ravaged Abbotsford, BC, says he can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Some residents displaced by 3 record-breaking storms are finally getting back into their homes, or what's left of them, and assessing how to move forward. As Mike Droulet reports, the floodwaters may be receding, but the problems left behind appear to be multiplying.
Far north of the floodplains of Sumas Prairie and just north of the town of Mission, another evacuation order. The fields are flooded, the rivers and lakes far higher than normal, but Gord Mantel says his house is dry, so he's not leaving.
Do you think that the evacuation order was senseless?
A little bit late, I think.
With the ground oversaturated, the fear of landslides and road washouts remains real, and rural communities on well water now have to be concerned with contamination from sewage and dead animals. The worst of the flood has passed in many areas, but in many ways the disaster has become more complicated.
So what needs to be done around here?
Oh, lots. I don't know how they're going to clean up.
How is one thing, how much is another. The province has begun taking bids on reconstruction projects, but they don't want to just rebuild bridges and highways. They want them to be engineered to withstand larger storms in the future.
The water came up to about there.
Residents of the hardest hit areas have more immediate needs, cleaning up their homes.
It just It smelled like mold. It was all damp in here.
Water levels have gone down over a half meter in the last 48 hours, and more water was pumped out of Sumas Prairie today. With no major storms ahead, many evacuation orders are slowly being lifted. Most residents haven't seen their homes in 2 weeks.
What do? You rebuild. It's 1 foot in front of the other. We're all here in the same boat, so there's no, some people lost more, lost less, but our lives changed, all of ours, right?
And another bit of good news. The Trans Mountain pipeline that's been out of service since the flooding began is expected to go back online Sunday. The reopening of southern BC will be gradual. Bridges and roads have to be inspected, and some of the lowest lying areas are days or even weeks away from being fully dry. The recovery won't be easy, but at least it's begun. Mike Drolet, Global News, Abbotsford, BC.
Still ahead, can blockchain unblock the supply chain issue? For some industries, supply chain disruptions have created a logistical nightmare, especially ahead of the holidays. But the problem has paved the way for cutting-edge Canadian solutions. Anne Gaviola has more on those homegrown innovations.
This is going to be the most wonderful holiday ever.
Few companies have navigated supply chain snafus as well as retail giant Walmart. Its deep pockets allowed it to do things like charter its own ships. But at the heart of its strategy is a cutting-edge solution made in Canada.
Due to the virtue of the way we have designed, Walmart never stopped, so we were part of the essential services.
Toronto-based DLT Labs helped Walmart Canada implement and manage its massive supply chain invoice and payment platform. Using blockchain, the technology that underpins cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Think of this digital ledger as a way to automate transactions and data points using GPS and the Internet of Things to track everything, from shipping routes and delays to truck refrigeration temperatures for food, and keep it securely on one platform. It was up and running just days before the pandemic shut the world down.
The timing was perfect because, of course, supply chains ended up being horrendously stressed.
Supply chain experts say blockchain technology's high cost means it's not the right solution for every business.
I wouldn't say it's adaptable to just everybody as of yet, but it's definitely an emerging technology that we're keeping our eye closely on.
One homegrown solution that's emerged during COVID is a shift to local producers, which lessens dependence on supply chains.
We're finding that one of the best things we can do is, because of the high cost of freight and because of the instability and strong delays in the supply chain, is to find as many great manufacturers in Canada and the United States as we can.
Canadian manufacturing climbed to a 7-month high in October, though it remains to be seen if this is a lasting trend. Perhaps the most important lesson learned from the supply chain chaos is that having a plan B and C is no longer optional. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Up next, an American in Paris and what she did for France. At this time of year, Antarctica experiences 24 hours of sunlight. But for a few moments today, there was a total solar eclipse. It's a rare sight over the southernmost continent, and it's the only place on the planet the moon completely blocked the sun. The next total solar eclipse over Antarctica won't happen until 2039. Josephine Baker may not be a household name in Canada, but she is in France. Born in America, the dancer and singer spent much of her career in Europe. And during the Second World War, her performances were a cover for her work as a spy. This week, she was given a rare honor reserved for French national heroes. Crystal Gumansing explains.
An icon of the 20s with a deep love for France. Admiration reciprocated by millions.
Josephine Baker ne défendait pas une couleur de peau.
French President Emmanuel Macron praised Josephine Baker, saying she did not defend a skin color, she carried a certain idea of humankind and fought for the freedom of all. At a rare ceremony earlier this week in Paris, a coffin was carried into the famed Pantheon, not holding remains but soil from the countries that shaped Baker 46 years after she passed away. Baker is only the 6th woman to be honored with a tomb in the Pantheon's mausoleum and the first black woman. Baker left America and her hometown of St. Louis, Missouri at 19, looking for opportunities as a dancer. It was in France where she rose to fame as one of the headliners at the renowned Folies Bergère in Paris. At Baker's namesake hotel, no one's surprised she was invited into the crypt with the likes of Marie Curie and Voltaire. It shows that French culture is opening up to things different from literature or only certain types of art. Cabaret gave Baker and France an edge during the war. In 1940, Baker pivoted from stage siren to spy, using her performances around Europe to collect information for the French resistance.
Je suis né un 23 décembre, je suis arrivé un 21 décembre.
To Jean-Claude Boulon-Baker, she was just mum. Baker adopted 12 children. As a mother, she was very simple, he says. As soon as she got home, it was over. She dropped her luggage. She cooked spaghetti and stuff. A mother, a spy, a performer, and years later, a passionate civil rights advocate, even speaking at the 1963 March on Washington. Baker's strength, determination, and grace now cemented in history with one of the highest honors in France. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
What a lovely story. And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, your Canada is the waves crashing on the shores of Northern Bay in Newfoundland and Labrador. We'd love to see your corner of the country, so please keep sending your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.